Here we go. Brendan Shanahan out as Toronto Maple Leafs president. Officially, it's been the worst kept secret. Honestly, when they granted permission for him to speak to the Islanders, and then I was hearing from a lot of people he was out, the MLSC board meeting happened today, and they notified Brendan Shanahan that he's not going to be back. So I just wanted to go over some moves, like basically the top five. We can top four, top five of Brendan Shanahan's tenure of the biggest mistakes over the last decade. So if you haven't yet, subscribe, like, comment, notification bell, all that good stuff. Brendan Shanahan, what went wrong? Well, you could probably go all the way back to basically prior pandemic. And some of the mistakes that were made back then were more so the moves he either didn't make or allowed to basically just transpire. And that was like the shifting of the general manager. So basically Mark Hunter, Lou Lamoriello, Kyle Dubas, they missed out and honestly made some brutal mistakes in the mid to late 2010s. And there was also some trade backs that backfired on them big time. So this is probably two mistakes. One of them being some of the misses on draft selections. And I know these other teams missed out on them, but there was so much more attention in Ontario on these guys that the Toronto Maple Leafs should have been all over them. And the two guys that I'm looking at are Travis Konechny and Alex DeBrincat. That was one of the massive mistakes the Leafs made, because those type of guys, especially Travis Konechny, those guys were criticized because they weren't big enough, the size, and the Leafs trade down. What do they do in the Konechny situation? They draft Dermott and they draft Jeremy Bracco. And then on the DeBrincat, they drafted Korshkov. So massive mistakes in all of that transition period of Mark Hunter and just brutal drafting. Finally, when they brought in good scouting staff that actually surrounded Kyle Dubas, that went well. But that adds to maybe a second or third mistake on Brendan Shanahan's part. And that was after the disappointments in the 18 and 19 seasons. It was like they were waiting for one more significant year to actually make change. And there was excuses after that. And that was probably the biggest mistake of Brendan Shanahan's tenure, is the excuses. 2020, them choking against the Columbus Blue Jackets. Oh, it's the pandemic. It's not a normal year. We can't evaluate properly on this year. 2021, lose to Montreal, another pandemic year. We can't evaluate properly. John Tavares is injured. All those excuses, right? Then you advance to 2022. They lose to the Cup champs in the Lightning. Another excuse. 2023, that was the year where it could have been all blown up, but because they won in the first round, push it another year. 2024, the injuries, no Matthews, no Nylander, no Joseph Woll. So you just continue to advance all these excuses of 6, 7, 8 years from the promising year out of that Washington series. Another mistake from Brendan Shanahan. Fourth mistake, Brendan Shanahan, the expansion draft. Again, is this a massive mistake in the grand scheme of things? I mean, you can say yes or no. The Jared McCann, Justin Hall thing. Allowing Dubas to make a decision like that, and I know that was what I included in my video for the Dubas thing, but Brendan Shanahan made a massive mistake there. So that's 4. And frankly, number 5, and you could go all the way back to the Foligno trade, go back to trading a first-round pick, the Marleau mistake. Going from one extreme to the next was also horrendous from Shanny. You can't bring in a guy, Lou Lamoriello, let him run free reign, sign Marleau to contract like that, do those kind of deals, and then go to the frickin' math whiz and Kyle Dubas so he could try to unwind from a lot of these deals, and trading a first-round pick attached with Marleau that ended up being Seth Jarvis. So it was just so much of this back and forth that you commit to veteran presence, then you commit to youth, you trade draft capital away, then you want to value draft capital. It was just so much back and forth, and it was just so frustrating that the Leafs couldn't get that identity or culture over a decade plus of the same president. You could never understand what this identity was outside of just a lack of identity, and that was the problem. And you see the same press conferences TSN 1050 put together. It was the same responses every year from this team. So the fact that they started off hot with a culture of like Babcock and Lou Lamoriello, so tough on these guys, and actually walked backwards to more of a soft culture with some of these rookie presences and Kyle Dubas and Sheldon Keefe, that was the number one biggest mistake from Brendan Shanahan. Is it was almost like you were moving backwards before you were moving forward. Give me your thoughts, guys. Brendan Shanahan, you respect the player, you respect the former player, you respect the hockey mind, but clearly a lot of mistakes on both the management and the player culture level. So give me your thoughts, guys, on what you think was Brendan Shanahan's biggest mistake over the course of his time in Toronto. Brendan Shanahan officially out as president of the Toronto Maple Leafs.